Hello, today we're in informational text and we're looking at the following three essential questions. Number 4, what is informational text really about? Number 5, how does interaction with text provoke thinking and response? And number 7, how does a reader's purpose influence how text should be read? Before we get into today's learning targets, I want to do a reminder of upcoming IXL sections we're going to be covering. We're going to cover section MM1, commas in a series. So please make sure that you're working on your commas in a series stuff. We already had a lesson in the narrative writing about commas in a series. So now it's time to get some practice for commas in a series. And then also we are going to be focusing on another suffix section, which is suffix section P6, words with full. To give you a few definitions about what the word full means when used, that ties into determining the meaning of words by their roots, or in this case, their suffixes. So full could mean full of, characterized by, tending to, and able to. So you're going to have some practice this week looking at words that have that suffix of full as the ending part of their word. So please make sure you do that practice. So as I said, today we are looking at nonfiction. We're going to be covering a close reading look at, excuse me, I've got a little tickle in my throat. We're going to be covering a close reading look at a section from the excerpt from the news article, the online news article about Abby and her being lost at sea for a little while. So remember what we said a close reading is. It's when we look at reading 3 different times. We read it over 3 different times. The first read is we look at what the text says. The second read is for how the text says it. And the third read is for why the text matters. As you read this the first time, we're going to be focusing on reading over the section from the online news article, focusing to highlight a key sentence that helps you really understand what's happening in each paragraph. You want to margin note that sentence. You'll highlight it and margin note that sentence's main idea for each of the paragraphs. So notice there are 3 specific paragraphs listed, so make sure you have a main idea decided for each. After you get those highlights, discuss them with your group, and then you need to answer the question, what is happening in these paragraphs? What is the author talking about? What events are taking place in those paragraphs? And you would provide your summary after that first initial phase of reading. So what questions does this in fact tie into, or learning targets does this in fact tie into? It ties into 3 specific learning targets, and this is the first time we're in the informative writing packet. So within the informative writing packet, this first phase of reading ties into learning target number 3, to determine 2 or more central ideas in a text. A central idea is that unifying element of a text. It's one idea that connects the whole text together. So to reword this into more understandable language, this learning target means to decide 2 or more ideas discussed in your text that connects the whole piece together. And as we read phase 1, we are sort of looking for those main big things, those main central ideas of the paragraph as you create those summaries. We are also looking in the first phase of reading at learning target number 4 to analyze how each central idea develops with specific claims over the course of the text. Remember, we said that central idea is that unifying element that connects the whole piece of the text together. To reword this learning target into simpler language, we could say that when you analyze the central idea's development, you're looking closely at how, or in other words, the way the central idea grows or changes using specific claims, opinions the author makes, over the course of the text. So when we're looking at how the central idea develops, we're looking at how those opinions, those claims that the author uses, the way in which the author develops them, that grows them over the course of the text. And then the last specific learning target in phase 1 we're connecting to is what you have to write at the very end of your discussion after you find that key sentence that you would call the main idea sentence. And that's an objective summary of the text, learning target number 5. Now this one, to put into our own words, would mean to make a brief restatement of the most important points of the text without adding any personal opinions. Only include the facts. In fact, a lot of people missed that question on the formative assessment because they picked an option, a summary option that had personal opinions in it. When we look at objective summaries of fiction, of nonfiction, of informative text, we only include the facts from the piece in that. If there are personal opinions mentioned, then it's not going to be a valid objective summary of the text. So that's the first reading, is to create an objective summary of the text, to reread for understanding, to understand what the text says. After we do that, we will reread the text for our second phase. Our second phase is how the text says it. In other words, the way in which the author communicates in his words. So as we're looking at the how, we're going to get a little bit more analytical, a little deeper in the reading. You're going to reread that entire excerpt from the news article. This time, I want you to focus on how many sections are actually in the excerpt. I'm calling a section by the change that the section change is shown through distinct changes in the ideas present within this particular text. So try to find a spot where the ideas distinctly change in the text. And I want you to highlight where you think that section changes from one type of idea to another type of idea within this section that we're reading. There's a distinct shift in thought process between the two parts I have given you. I want you to margin note how you notice that change in ideas when you read over it. Okay, so after you figure out where that distinct shift or change in the ideas occurs, I want you to discuss that with your group and then answer this question. So now you've established there are two parts within this. So what's the difference about each section? How does each section contribute to the development of the author's idea? And you're going to explain your answer and your evidence here. I want you to begin the wording of your answer in this section with one of the following. You could begin with, the section contributes to the author's ideas by showing, by providing, by explaining something, by revealing something, by clarifying something, by describing something, or by suggesting something. That's the easier option of a choice, but if you want to be a little bit more, do it in a little more challenging way, maybe you could focus on a specific aspect of each section. So the section uses something specific, what is it? That's what you'd fill in there. To explain, what do they explain with that one specific thing they'd use in that section? The section uses something specific to convince the reader of what? Or the section uses something specific, please explain what that is right there, to illustrate something in particular. All of this ties in to learning target number 19. Learning target number 19 is to analyze the structure the author uses to organize the text by how a major section of the text contributes to the author's idea development. So when we say that in our own words, that means to look closely at how the information within the text is organized, as in specific paragraphs or sections, because in those specific sections, the author has specific ways that they have created that paragraph to grow or change or add detail to their ideas, their opinions, or their claims. So you want to think about this section as a specific part that develops the author's ideas. Whenever we think about that, we want to focus in on how that section shows the author's ideas or grows them or changes them or adds detail to them. Maybe it's showing something specifically in that section that you don't see in another. Maybe it's providing something that section does that no other section within the story does. Maybe the author uses that section to explain something to develop their ideas more fully, or reveals, which means to make known something that is not already clear to begin with. Clarify, which means to make clear or less confusing, or describing something in particular in that section that none of the other sections in the story or in the informative piece do. On this other side, like I said, you could go into it with the author does it for a reason, showing, explaining, providing, or maybe you could specify what the author uses. Like, does the author use specific word choice to explain something? Does the author use a specific type of figurative language to convince us of something? Does the author use something I haven't thought of to illustrate a specific aspect of something? You need to think about, for what reason did the author include that section? How does that section help the author to communicate add detail to their ideas, their claims, and their opinions. We're going to